Okey pokey.
I beg your pardon. Not in front of the children, dear.
It's not like me. I'm normally on it every morning. I'll have a little look and see where we're at, and I literally haven't even looked at them since Monday.
Caption this just for fun. And save to there. Caption this just for fun. Save. Right, that's now in the save folder. Just got to do the comments now. La 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 la.
Okay.
I've got something awesome to show, what Paul got me for my birthday, which I told him I would wear on air, and I haven't had a chance yet.
Oh God! Be afraid, everyone. Be very afraid.
Is my level all right, Mr. Smith?
It'll do. It'll do.
I don't even know where I am on the levels.
I don't know what the time is. Probably time I press the button.
1959.
Oh, right. Okay, there we go. Okay, we're gonna be fair enough. 30 seconds late, then, everyone. Sorry about that. I knew we were a bit on the drag.
I'm sure we'll live.
No, I'll get a sternly worded email from Nev. You watch.
Yeah, you will.
Well, if he was here, then, he would have something to say about it. But if he can't be bothered to turn up...
Oh, now. Anyway, bye-bye.
Well, hello and welcome to episode 521 of the Plain Talking UK podcast. I am Carlos, and in this week's show we have more great news for aspiring pilots, more bad news at Boeing, no surprises there, then an exploded vape and an ear-popping story from America. In the military segment this week, we've got news about the RAF's Wedgetail, a British firm making drones for the Ukraine. Not the Ukraine, it's Ukraine. We really are short on crew this week. Unfortunately, Captain Andy is still AWOL. Reports have emerged from West Sussex of a grumpy bearded man having been trapped inside a flight sim, but we've been unable to confirm them. Sir Neville Bounds has once again been kidnapped and forced to do work, which we assume to mean entertaining clients on his vast expenses account. Hopefully we'll see him back again next week.
Wow,
However,
Mr. Codling really is trying to get himself in trouble this week, isn't he?
However, it's not all bad news. We've got our very own Sultan of Suffolk, the maestro of the sound desk, is, of course, the very wonderful Matt Smith.
Gone from the sublime to the core blimey there. Yes, hello, good evening. How are we?
Oh, good. It was very nice to have you visit this afternoon, Mr. Smith, and join me for dinner.
I'm very proud of myself. I managed to successfully walk all the way over to Carlos's without falling over. It didn't rain either, which was an added bonus, I'm not going to lie. I could only stay like half an hour because it took me a little while to stroll. But yeah, I got to the other end and I didn't hurt or anything. It was marvellous.
Oh, yeah, it's good to see you. Good to see you. May it continue.
God bless our NHS, that's what I say.
Yeah, did you hear that, dear?
Yeah, God bless our NHS. Yeah,
I can't hear you.
No, it's fair enough.
Anyway, yes, hopefully we'll see you again at some point soon, Mr. Smith. Always good to have you join me for dinner. And in what can only be described as a rather hectic week, Nick is filling in spaces from the subs bench. Mr. Codling, how are you?
Hello, Carlos. Nice to see you. Yes, it's been a bit crazy, and Yeah, we've all been a bit hectic this week, haven't we?
It has been busy.
So yeah, we shall be interested to see how we get on. Matt, I want to know how the star jumps are going.
What?
now that you're Captain Bionic.
Oh, I see. Yes, absolutely. Yeah,
Oh,
no,
yes.
yeah. True. Yeah, no, it's pretty good actually. Yeah, as I say, it's really made a surprising amount of difference. Really, I hurt in other places now, but it's got nothing to do with the foot anymore, which is progress. So we'll take that away. So we're trying to get. We've even sort of like opted to like do away with things like special assistance for my trip that's coming up in a little while. So we're feeling that confident that things are on the mend. That's
excellent.
How exciting that is.
Very pleased to hear it. That's
Indeed.
great.
It's my little carbon fibre, don't know what to call it really.
Bionic leg.
Appendage.
You're basically Iron Man.
I am, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't mind the suit, I'll tell you. I wouldn't mind the money either.
I'll tell you, if we ever get into any kerfuffle, any scraps, I'm going to get Matt to kick whoever annoys me.
Right, okay. Yes. I mean, or better yet, what I can do, because obviously it goes around my calf, so you could attach it to your arm and literally use it as a, Anyway, we shouldn't be, Don't want you to bend it.
This is Actually, it wouldn't surprise me, actually, Matt, if what they used on that your new leg piece is made out of aviation grade materials.
I mean, nothing,
it could be.
I mean, nothing but the best for the best, obviously.
Yeah. So before we welcome our glorious chat room to the show, I'm going to say a special thank you to Paul, who I work with, my work colleague over in Disc, because he got me something here. I'm going to show you. I'm going to stand up. Hopefully, you'll be able to see this on the show.
Oh my goodness!
There we go. For those of you watching in the world of YouTube,
right.
There we go.
That's a very appropriate T-shirt.
I did promise him that I would wear it for the show.
Right.
So
am I allowed to say what a lovely six-pack that is you've got there?
See, Nick got that one. Well done, Nick. Well done.
Oh, dream on, dear, dream on.
Yeah, I know.
We've all got one. They're just a bit hidden.
Yeah. No, I did away with my six-pack. Decided to go with a keg.
When I first tried this on, Gemma looked at it and she just went,
"No, I didn't get it until Nick mentioned it. I'm afraid."
Yeah, in aviation terms, that's known as a six pack.
Yes, lovely. The education continues. Everyone, well done.
I know. But yes, thank you for that, Paul. Anyway, right. So we're going to say a big hello to everyone who's joined us in the chat room tonight. Going to say hello to a local listener, Mazouz. Hello to Mazouz Cream. Lovely to see you in there, as always. Richard Adams is in there as well. Alan White. Good evening, PTUK land, he says. We have got, let me scroll down. Actually, someone's asking the chat room, are you back from the US, Mazouz? I'm guessing he is. Richard E. Flagg, hello to you as well. Some really good pictures this week on the site. Richard, I noticed you put some in there. I think I saw one from Seething that you put in there, which was quite interesting to see. Alan White, good to see you. Bill, hello to you, Bill. Good to see you. Kevin Lerman, hello. Good afternoon, he says, from Canada. Hello, Kevin. Great to see you in the chat room. Thanks for tuning in. Captain Cruz, he is catching up, watching episode 520. Missed it as he was in Toulouse last Wednesday. Well, we'll let him off. Home of Airbus. John Falk, hello to you. John, great to see you in there. He was in Jersey for the Light Content Air Show a few weeks ago, but some great demonstrations, he says. Good to see you in there. Darren Smith, hello from Oslo, he says, recovering from an operation. Oh, Darren, hope you get well soon. The lovely Tanya, hello to you, Tanya. Great to see you in there. Thanks for tuning in. And our good friend from Duxford, Graham Haley, resident ATC controller there. Graham, he's in the chat room. Jonathan Warner, he's still busy sorting through the 6.5 billion photos he's taken at the last two air shows. Good to see you in there.
This is one of them, by the way, behind me here.
That is one of them, that one, what Matt's got there.
Yeah.
Christy G says, hello, chaps. Hello, Christy. Great to see you in there as well. Dirk S. Wouldn't be the chat room without our friend Dirk in there as well. Great to see you, Dirk. Hobby Time. Hello to Hobby Time. Let me scroll down, make sure I don't miss anyone else. Richard Adams, Alan White with John Jester. John Jester is in the most random place for tonight's show. John Jester is joining us from Kazakhstan.
Oh.
That's fantastic.
Different.
That's definitely an award there for the most.
That's an award there.
The most random listener location. Nice to see you, John.
Yeah.
We need to get John back on the show.
John wins that, I should say, for most random place to watch the show from. So well done. So great to see everyone in the chat room tonight. Don't forget, if you are listening to us as an audio show, we're live on YouTube every Wednesday night at 7 o'clock, where Matt hits that go live button, and we broadcast live, and we'd love to see you in the chat room. And don't forget as well to subscribe to the show on YouTube and click the bell icon to be notified when we're live and recording new shows.
Even if he does take it right up to the wire on this occasion.
Good reason for.
Yeah.
We've got loads to get through this week. We've got Caption This, and we've also got our Retro Airline Ad of the Week this week, which Matt is going to love because the quality is, it's not 1080p. Anyway,
Right.
So if our resident skeleton crew is ready, shall we do some commercial news?
Let's do it.
The captain has turned on the seatbelt light. Please take your seats and fasten your seatbelts.
And the first story this week comes to us from the aviationinsider.com. And great news is here in the UK for one of our biggest carriers, low-cost carriers. EasyJet reopens applications for 2024 pilot training program in a drive to recruit 1,000 new pilots. So EasyJet has today, or this week, announced that it has opened its renowned Generation EasyJet pilot training program, which takes aspiring pilots with little or no experience to the cockpit of an Airbus A320 commercial airliner in around 2 years, or as qualified co-pilots. Over 1,000 pilots are set to join the EasyJet fleet by 2028 as part of a 5-year recruitment drive, with around 200 places now available this year. With still only around 6% of pilots worldwide being women, EasyJet have been focusing on tackling this industry-wide challenge for a number of years through initiatives including recruitment campaigns, its pilot schools, visits program, and summer flight school. As a result, 7.5% of EasyJet pilots in the UK are now women, compared with the UK industry average of 6.5%, with around 300 women, including 99 captains, now flying for the airline, which has continued to work on tackling stereotypes and misconceptions around the job and encouraging more women to apply. Earlier this month, the airline launched an online test which assesses some of the key skills required to become an airline pilot, after research was revealed that half of Brits, or 50%, don't know what qualifications are needed to become an airline pilot and learn to fly a commercial jet. To apply to EasyJet's pilot training program, aspiring pilots need to be aged 18 or over. Yeah, got that box ticked, definitely. By the time they begin training, have a minimum of 5 GCSEs, grade C or above. Including mathematics, oh dear, science, oh boy, English, no other higher qualifications or degrees are required.
I'm still included in that. I'm still in.
Training takes place with the airline's training partner CAE at its Aviation Academy, locations in Gatwick, Milan, Brussels or Madrid, with flight training taking place in the US. On successful completion of training, graduates begin their careers flying as co-pilots with EasyJet. So Captain Kate West, pilot training manager at EasyJet, said, "We are delighted to reopen applications for this year's Generation EasyJet pilot training program as part of our drive to recruit 1,000 new pilots and encourage more people to join this fantastic profession." The training program, Become a Pilot, focuses on skills such as communication and problem solving. So when working as a team on the flight deck, diversity is an incredibly valuable part. Tackling stereotypes about our job is critical to driving this, and while we are proud to have many more women flying with us today, we know there is still more work to be done to increase all forms of diversity and to remain committed to leading the industry in this. She said, I joined EasyJet over 10 years ago as a growing airline with opportunities for career progression and a fantastic reputation for training. This is true now as it was back then, when we look forward to seeing many new pilots joining EasyJet in this rewarding career in the months and years to come. The Generation EasyJet pilot training program is now open for aspiring pilots to apply, and you can find more about that over at EasyJet's website. Just look up for Generation EasyJet pilot training program. You can also find details over on the CAE's website as well. So it's great news, obviously, for people who've done well at school. Obviously not me.
I don't think, but I don't think that's a be all and end all. To be fair, Carlos, because there are ways around these things now. As long as you're able to
go back to school.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's nothing to stop you from. I mean, I dare say it would be an awful lot easier for you to sort of get the required qualifications going forward. The school of life helps unbelievably when it comes to some of the things.
Oh, my word, yes.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
Yes. Anyway.
I think often as well, a lot of these training programs will go more on having a good aptitude as well as some flight experience as well. I know that some of the training programs will kind of work on the fact that you've done sometimes it's 200 or 500 hours. And there is a bit of a sort of widely held belief that you've got to have a degree to be a pilot, and that really isn't the case. So, I think that even for people that wouldn't necessarily consider themselves to be especially academic, they shouldn't rule themselves out. And I think, I feel very strongly about helping to encourage people if it's, it's something that for me as a teenager, I was interested in doing, and I didn't do it because I wasn't confident enough. And I think that, there are probably other people like me that actually just need that bit of an encouragement and a bit of a push to say, well, actually, you can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's true.
It's one of those things, and I know, like, especially for me and Matt, we changed jobs. Just over a year ago, it's just over a year ago that we changed jobs. We moved into two sort of completely different areas of the industries as such. I'm in construction and kind of engineering. Matt's gone into the insurance kind of side of things. None of us knew what we were, pretty much doing in regards to systems and how things operated and worked. We didn't have qualifications and all the rest of it for doing this, that, and the other. But Matt is now incredibly good at what he does, and he does his job very well. And you've learned, haven't you, Matt, how to do things, and you'll know. And let's be honest, you can't just walk in off the street and do your job.
No, you can't. And to be fair, if I have had too many more days like I've had yesterday and today, then I won't be there much longer either. But
you and me both, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a funny old couple of days, but no, I totally get where you come from. As you say, the school of life, you never know quite what path it'll take you down. That's part of the fun, isn't it, at the end of the day? I'm with Mr. Warner, actually. He's saying, am I alone in not caring who is up front as long as they know what they're doing? I personally don't understand the obsession of companies trying to bring the numbers level. And I think that's, I've always said that the biggest problem with, sort of stereotypes, if you like, in terms of who's able to do what job, the issue lays right at the early doors of school. The problem is that people, that women don't necessarily think of being in aviation as a potential career. And that, for me, is where the problem lays. That's not, I don't think, in this day and age, especially with companies like, EasyJet and BA and all that kind of thing, I don't think that is the reason why. It's just that for some reason, that isn't the path, if you like, that pops into, say, a lady's head as something that they could do and feel comfortable at doing. And for me, that's where the problem lays. The education, that's very much a job that you can do, brilliantly is where the problem lies for me.
Yeah. Now, I'm just logging in to do the socials, Matt, for VMix, but I've just noticed a comment in the chat room from Dirk. He's just said, if you generally hate people, you should probably go for a cargo pilot's job.
Yes,
It's true.
yes, that is true. That is true. It would certainly sort of preclude the issue there, I think. Yeah.
Anyway,
Indeed.
moving on to the next story, Matt. You've got the next one for, it's all about a 10 quid charge.
Yes, indeed. It almost seems a little bit like they're trying to do at Heathrow what they've been doing at Norwich for far too long, frankly. But this is slightly different, actually. Also, I don't know who was responsible for this story, but if it is Simon Calder, I am absolutely appalled by some of the language that's been used in this article, which I have edited.
It is from Simon Calder.
It is from Simon Calder. Well, then he should hold his head in shame.
He should know better.
And if you look for this story on the Independent newspaper, you can perhaps see why I'm so offended by it. But so I apologise if I've missed some of the changes that needed to be done. Independent.co.uk is the source on this one, and the headline is Heathrow Airport could lose 4 million passengers a year due to new £10 ETA charge. The government's announcement that almost all non-UK residents will require online permission to change planes in the UK from next year has caused consternation at Heathrow, with fears of huge financial losses as a possible 4 million passengers choose other hub airports to avoid the added red tape. From April 2025, overseas transit passengers at Heathrow must register and pay £10 for an electronic travel authorisation just to spend 2 hours between flights. Other leading hubs have no such obligation. Losing connecting travellers could undermine the viability of some air routes, further damaging inbound tourism. Labour has decided to back the Tory scheme to require all non-British or Irish nationals to have online permits ahead of travel to the UK. Now, one of the other things there, of course, is because we've been doing stories very recently about a third runway at Heathrow. If they lose 4 million passengers a year, will they still need it?
And they're going to need to pay for that somehow.
Well, yeah, true. On Tuesday, do they though? I mean, they make enough money.
That's just on the food.
With the respect to the airport itself. But anyway, on Tuesday, the Minister for Migration and Citizenship, Seema Malhotra, announced the ETA scheme will apply to the vast majority of overseas arrivals by the 2nd of April 2025. In backing the previous government's plans, she said digitisation enables a smooth experience for the millions of people who pass through the border every year, including the visitors we warmly welcome to the UK, who are predicted to contribute over £32 billion to our tourism economy this year. But analysis by the Independent indicates the scheme as planned will cause serious financial damage for Heathrow Airport and its retailers, as well as UK airlines. The demand for transit passengers to apply online and pay for a permit will make London Heathrow an outlier. Other global hubs, including Amsterdam, Frankfurt, Istanbul, Paris, Charles de Gaulle Airport, Dubai and Singapore, require only that travellers have permission to enter their final destination. The government says requiring transit passengers to obtain an ETA stops people who may use connecting flights to avoid gaining permission to travel to the UK. Strongly disagree with that. At present, ETAs are required by 6 Gulf nations: Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia and the UAE. In July, Heathrow Airport revealed that 90,000 potential passengers had switched to other airports in the few months since the scheme began for nationals of the first half dozen countries. We've seen a loss of a significant number of transfer passengers already, a Heathrow spokesperson said. The Independent has extrapolated these figures to model the potential impact where passengers from other nations to follow the same pattern. At present, almost all transit passengers passengers at Heathrow, comprising 30% of the total, need to need only to be documented for their destination, but initial figures for Gulf nationals suggest 1 in 6 prospective transit passengers has switched from Heathrow to a different hub because of the ETA demand. The story goes on. I won't move on. I won't go on, but I don't think it's the £10 charge, is it, that's the issue? I think it's the fact that you've got to fill in a form, and presumably that has to be done before you leave. It's not something that you can fill in and deal with on the aircraft, unless you're lucky enough, well, yes, and I don't think, again, the issue I don't think is for those that are visiting and staying here in the UK in the same way that you have to do an ESTA to go to the US. I think for me the issue is the transitioning passengers having to do that, and as I say, I genuinely don't think it's the £10 fee because, with respect, if you have got an ongoing transfer, £10 is not going to be the reason why you don't use that particular that particular route, because you're probably choosing that route because of the times work well for you. You're not making that decision based on the fact that it's £10 cheaper, but having to fill in another form to transit through a country that you're not technically visiting, I mean, presumably as long as you stayed airside, I don't understand why you need to sort of do that. If you're leaving and going into the UK, absolutely, then I don't have an issue with it at all, because if it applied to all passengers, then will it have an impact on tourism? I mean, it would probably make a handful of people change their mind, but I don't see that. Personally, I think it's a bit money grabbing, if I'm honest with you. If for people who are transitioning through Heathrow, and as you say, that people will perhaps choose to transition through, sort of Amsterdam or maybe even Stansted. Although I don't think there's a great deal of sort of like transfer flights that go out in and out.
Well, so this story does make the point of it being something specific to Heathrow. This is actually a new regulation which I believe is going to affect all incoming travellers who are entering the UK by whatever means.
Right. Okay.
So I think the point they're trying to make is that this will cause Heathrow specifically to lose a certain amount of business by people that will choose not to travel through Heathrow itself.
But technically, Stansted and Gatwick could also suffer because
correct.
Because it's not specific to Heathrow; it's a government scheme.
That's right. That's right.
It will affect all transitioning flights through the UK.
Yeah, and even people arriving by ferry or the Channel Tunnel.
Wow.
So there are several points to this, really. One is, what's wrong with the system we've got at the moment, and why do we need this extra level of hassle and expense for people coming to the UK? And the second thing is, as you quite rightly point out, for people that aren't even entering the UK but are actually staying in the airport and then flying to another country, this just seems absolutely pointless and an absolute pain in the backside.
Well, and again, if it was, say they got like a 9-hour layover or something like that, and they decided that they wanted to come, leave airside essentially and go onto the outskirts of London, or go to Windsor, or go for a walk or something. Do you know what I mean? Then I could understand that. Right? Okay, you'll have to fill in the form. You can probably do it on your phone if it's all digital and electronic, like they say it is. You can do it there, and then you can pay for it and go and have your fresh air and stretch your legs and
interesting though.
Go and wave at the King. Windsor, but
you actually can't. Because it takes up to 3 days to get a decision on your application. So it's not even as though you can simply just fill out a form and you're good to go. You actually have to do it in advance of travelling. So it is another layer of adding hassle to kind of putting people off coming here, to be honest.
Another layer of red tape.
Which is like an ESTA, because an ESTA normally takes 2 or 3 days to be processed. But I noticed that they put the price of those up. The ESTA has gone up now to $21, which is about 15, 16 quid in UK pounds for an ESTA now, but it is valid for 3 years. So
and actually my ESTA, I mean, I got my decision in 3 hours.
Yeah. They are very good.
But but if you were here on a layout, if you were literally transitioning, then 3 hours would be the difference between whether it was worth it or not, I suppose.
Unless you're applying for a new passport, in which case it takes about 6,000 years currently.
Yeah, or unbelievably, change your vehicle. I mean, I'm sure you were the same as me, Carlos. Recently, I had it in like 48 hours. It had arrived. It was ridiculous.
Well,
Gone from one extreme to the other.
Obviously, you're off to Dubai in November, aren't you, Matt? Is your passport all in check?
One moment, caller. Let's.
He's going to look now and go, oh my God, it runs out next week.
Oh, is this the bit where we get to see Matt's passport photo?
Hang on, if I put my hand over there, then yes, you can. There you go, look.
Oh, you actually don't look like it's a prison mugshot.
I do look like a miserable what's it?
Oh my word.
There we go, yes. So mine expires on...
You're like me, you've got the old style.
I have, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I absolutely don't want to get rid of this. I love this one. 19th of July, 2027, mine expires. So I've got
that's
3
okay.
years left to go.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, absolutely. Very excited I am as well.
I've got to renew mine for next year.
And it is literally 2 months today.
Exciting times. As he takes a slurp of water.
Yeah, who'd have thought I'd ever get excited about
going on an aeroplane?
I would be excited because you're travelling on the 380.
Yes,
so I would.
Yes, the 380. Well,
I love the 380.
Was it flying out on the 380, but I'm coming back on the 777, wasn't it?
Yeah, you fly out on. Funny enough, you fly out on the same flight that me and Jem have flown out on a few times to Dubai.
Okay.
And on the 380, and you travel back on the 777 300 ER, I think it is. You travel back on. So
yeah, love that.
It's exciting.
It doesn't mean anything to me, but yes, it's. I should stress, by the way, I'm extremely nervous about the flight, but it's more what I'm going there for.
If any of our listeners, are members or workers or people who work within Emirates, just when you see Matt's name appear on the manifest for the passengers, just nudge him into business class.
Right? Yeah, of course. That'll work. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Ha ha. Very funny. Although to be fair, the old economy is pretty generous. To be fair, with Emirates, isn't it? So I'm very much looking forward to that. But I can't wait. It is genuinely 2 months today. I will be in the air in about half an hour.
So there'll be no podcast that week then. God help us all.
Hopefully, I will have our Master Suite version 2 studio up and running by then. So we have a standby studio.
Indeed,
exciting,
indeed. And but I think, to be fair, Nick, your previous statement still stands. God help us all.
It all tends to go to pot when you're not around.
Yeah, indeed.
Oh, thanks, Nick.
You're welcome.
God, he's going for. When's he start on me? That's what I want to know. He's had a go at everyone so far. Right, Mr. Smith, are you interested in aircraft, or should you be doing a cooking program? Very much a cooking program. I couldn't give a monkeys about the aircraft.
That's what they need to do. These airlines need to have a full kitchen on board aircraft, and Matt could go on board and cook up sort of beef Wellington or something.
Well, yeah, that is my speciality.
That'd be a great way to fill time on a long haul flight, wouldn't it?
I wouldn't be worried about the flight at all if I was busy. Yeah.
Imagine the smells.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
As long as I haven't got to wash up.
Well, quite indeed. No. Murphy's law would state that I'd probably burn something and set fire to the galley or something. Indeed. Just don't eat the fish, Richard Adams is suggesting.
Yeah, good advice.
Good advice.
I'm not flying the plane, by the way. I should make that clear.
Yet.
Yeah, we're going to phone ahead.
Are you? Okay, everybody be terribly disappointed. You'll stick me in it and I'll go, right, lovely. So this is an Airbus. Which one's the takeoff button?
380. Yeah. We should take off a land button.
Beat me to it.
Yes,
anyway.
Yes, sorry. We digress slightly.
Nick, you've got the next story, and it could be bad news for Boeing. Dare I say that again?
Oh no.
Yes, I feel like if I was to say to you, we're going to have a story about Boeing, it could hardly be good news. And I feel like if we were to have a story whereby we reported that a massive sinkhole had swallowed up Boeing in its entirety, it kind of wouldn't be that much of a surprise, really.
Not really,
Yeah.
no.
So, yeah, this one is from aerospaceglobalnews.com. Boeing freezes hiring and instigates cost cutting as strike continues. So last week we reported that Boeing was hit by strike action, and with them continuing to feel the impact of the ongoing strike, the aerospace manufacturer is set to tighten its belt through a number of cash-preserving measures, including freezing hiring, reducing company travel, and considering the difficult step of temporary furloughs for many employees in the coming weeks. In a memo to employees, Executive Vice President and Chief Financial Officer Brian West explained that the strike, instigated last Friday and encompassing around 33,000 workers, 33,000 in the Washington state, jeopardizes Boeing's recovery in a significant way, reaffirming that Boeing's business is in a difficult period. Yep, you're not wrong there. He added that these...
That's one word for it.
I was going to use a different phrase, but it's a family show.
Yeah.
That these necessary measures will protect all funding for safety, quality, and direct customer support work. A hiring freeze will now be instigated across all levels, with pay increases also on ice. The possibility of furloughing many employees, managers, and executives is also being considered, West confirmed, alongside what he termed the temporary release of non-essential contractors. Additionally, all Boeing company travel not critical for customer, program, regulatory, or supply chain activity is being eliminated, with any on-site team meetings requiring travel now to be conducted virtually, a bit like everybody else has been doing then. You'd think they'd have caught on to that by now. They've got this thing called video conferencing, Boeing. You should try it.
It's very modern, very modern indeed.
I suppose they'd rather people get on aeroplanes, wouldn't they?
Well, also, I mean, it's very difficult to build an aircraft, remotely.
True. All first and business class air travel, including for the Executive Council, has also been halted. However, the impact of austerity measures will likely be felt by all employees, with a number of cuts to directly affect those working across the business. These include pausing of employee recognition and team event spending, the cessation of catered meal and food services at Boeing facilities and less customer related, and the suspension of non-essential capital expenditures and facilities spending. Members of the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers in Washington and in Oregon overwhelmingly rejected a pay deal thrashed out with Boeing, which would have included a 25% pay rise over the next 4 years, although Boeing described the contract as historic. Workers subsequently rejected it, subsequently instigating strike action. As the new CEO, Kelly Ortberg, continues to grapple with the problems facing the company, not least the manufacturing issues and regulatory scrutiny instigated in the aftermath of the Alaska Airlines door plug incident, it seems Boeing's road to recovery is going to continue to be a tough one. Now, when I was at school, I distinctly remember at secondary school, sometimes we would get a supply teacher in, and she was well known to the pupils as not being very good at keeping everybody in check. And in the chemistry lab, we would go round setting fires around the chemistry lab, and she would follow us round trying to put these fires out, which is very mean. But I kind of feel a bit like that's what's going on at Boeing at the moment. They're just kind of continually putting fires out and just trying to chase around and trying to fix problems, and it just isn't going any better for them.
Very true, Nick. It's a shame because, when you look back over the years, Boeing used to be, it used to be the name, the name of choice. If you saw a 747, it was just like it was the most iconic aircraft. I think graced the skies. I think we'll all agree. But something needs to change. I think it is on the change. I think things are changing.
I mean, I can't say I'm surprised at the kind of austerity measures because they've had a lot of really expensive lawsuits, and they've been absolutely hemorrhaging. That word. That's the one.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Matt. Yes, losing lots of cash.
Yes.
Yeah, hand over fist, and you kind of think, crikey, where's this big hole that they're pulling all this money out of? So yeah, I mean, obviously something needs to be done from a sort of business point of view in order for them to keep all the numbers up in the green. But yeah, it's it seems like things are continuing to get worse before they get better. Good question there from Darren.
Will Airbus take over Boeing one? Oh, now there's a scandalous thought.
Darren says that, but if I remember, I read online only a couple of weeks ago that the Airbus and Boeing sales figures, Airbus is starting to, be the top dog.
It has been edging ahead for a while, I think, hasn't it? Yeah. And certainly, the supply issues, problems with the Max didn't hurt Airbus at all, with people, a lot of airlines switching over to the kind of the Neos and all that kind of stuff. The Airbus is very compelling as an alternative, isn't it? So and I think we might continue to see that for some time, but one to watch.
So moving on, next one is from aerotime.aero, and another EasyJet story. Oh, there, I'm getting it tonight. EasyJet flight evacuated during boarding after a vape explodes in a carry-on bag. It's something I don't have a problem with because I don't smoke. I don't vape either. Can't stand the bloody things personally, but that's just my thoughts. On September the 17th this year, an A321 operating flight EZY8216 was evacuated prior to departure from Herculon, Crete to London Gatwick Airport due to a fire in a passenger's cabin bag. A spokesperson for the airline said the aircraft was scheduled to depart at 5 to 2 local time in the afternoon. However, according to a report by the Mail Online, an eyewitness said fire and acrid smoke billowed from the bag, popping and exploding noises, and smoke filled the cabin around the bag. Witnesses also said that the bag was dropped in the aisle and some passengers were screaming those words you never want to scream on board an aircraft: bomb. And clattering to get out of the aisle. The explosion is believed to have been caused by a power bank and e-cigarettes inside a passenger's carry-on bag. Fire services, police forces attended the scene to investigate the incident. There were 236 passengers on board the aircraft, and they were all quickly evacuated onto the runway using the emergency slides. There were no reports of any injuries, except one passenger who suffered friction burns while using the emergency slide to leave the aircraft. The flight to London took off later the same day, obviously with another aircraft, with all 236 passengers safely on board. Now, Matt will know about these things, I think, and probably you as well, Nick. But I think, as you have said before, Matt, that if you purchase those cheap and cheerful power banks that sort of dramatize how wonderful they are and how many millions and millions of milliamps volts they produce, this probably is going to likely to happen. Whereas if you obviously get a decent branded power bank, I mean,
yes, I guess when it comes to those sort of things, you are essentially getting what you pay for. I mean, that having been said, I've had a cheap brand power bank that is probably one of the best that I've ever had. It was a manufacturer that I didn't know or understand, and I did accidentally crush it, and it didn't do the thermal runaway thing. It just shorted itself out, and that was the end of it, because it got, it was actually relatively well made. So you can't necessarily say that just because it's a cheap brand doesn't necessarily mean that it's not been... it lowers the chances of it being a quality product. I understand where you're coming from, but I don't know.
Because I don't know how vapes... I think I know how vapes work, but I'm guessing essentially a vape has got a battery in...
Yeah, absolutely. It's exactly the same thing. And they are smaller, therefore they're much easier to crush, and all that kind of thing, I suppose. I'd like to say essentially that you perhaps it should be in your suitcase, but of course you might want to use it before you get on board. So I do get it. It is, for me, the lesser of two evils. I don't personally have any problem with vapes. I think they're, we don't know enough. They smell a lot nicer than the alternative. To be fair. There is that. Where I don't have a problem with people, do that. I understand where you're coming from, Carlos, but it's not illegal to smoke yet.
No,
and
on board aircraft.
Yeah. Well, in general, my take on it, frankly, is stop, sort of like tiptoeing around the subject. If you're sort of banning cigarettes, banning vapes in certain places. There's now a law they're talking about bringing in here where they're going to ban it from pubs and beer gardens as well. You just think, well, if you're going to do it, just ban it. Stop being a bunch of wetties about it and just ban it. If that's how you truly think. And then perhaps some of this issue will disappear. It could be a laptop or a tablet as well. To be fair, they have the same batteries in them. They are equally as susceptible to being crushed. Perhaps some would argue more so. In terms,
I mean, we see it a lot with mobile phones, don't we? I think we had a story a couple of weeks ago actually
where
it
gets caught in the mechanism and crushed.
A phone got trapped in a business class seat. I mean, having in my day job, I design and develop new products, and have done quite a few that have got sort of inbuilt batteries in them. And generally speaking, when you're designing stuff like that, you have to have provision in the office in order to have somewhere that you can put these batteries in the event that they do decide to go off, because they, when they do go off, there's not an awful lot you can do about it. So generally there will be some sort of fire suppressant liquid that you'll use, and that's in a design office on the ground. You wouldn't want to be having this kind of stuff going on in aircraft, although I believe a lot of airlines do now have kind of envelopes or
bags that you can put stuff in.
Bags that you can put devices into in the event that this happens, which helps to suppress the fire. But I think we will continue to see this. Ultimately, we all like having our devices with us. We all like to make sure that they're topped up. So people will be continuing to carry portable powered battery devices around with them. So I think we will continue to see this happening, unfortunately. I should just mention, you said about the aircraft being presumably a different aircraft because they'd had to deploy the slide for this one. And we did have a bit of a chat with Andy on the group chat during the week, because I was curious about what happens when they deploy a slide, and how quickly can it actually be changed, because obviously aircraft are only earning money when they're in the sky. So Andy reckoned it was probably about an hour to change a slide. So you basically unbolt the one that's inflated, and then a new one comes along, and it's in a sort of specially packaged up thing that just pops back into the door, and away you go. So it's actually pretty quick to do it. I guess the issue would have been in this instance, it was at Heraklion in Crete, whether or not they would have had personnel or the facilities to be able to undertake that.
So, Matt, you've got the next story, and not great news for these passengers, but I think a fair judgment here.
Indeed. The source is metro.co.uk. No headline on this one, but it says an airline has banned a couple from flying with them ever again after an argument broke out over a reclining seat. Cathay Pacific, a Hong Kong-based airline, said that they'd added the couple to their no-fly list after they disrespected other passengers, the BBC has reported. The China... This is something... Sorry, this really winds me up, this does. The metro.co.uk is essentially ripping off a story that the BBC did. Really winds me up. Anyway, a Chinese woman posted on social media that she was flying from Hong Kong to London on the 17th of September when a couple accused her of obstructing their view of the in-flight television. They asked if she could straighten her seat, but when the woman refused, the wife placed her legs on the armrest and began swearing and slapping her arm in Cantonese. She said when she realised I couldn't speak Cantonese, she started calling me mainland girl in a derogatory tone. The woman... Oh, sorry, my machine is jumping around all over the place for some reason. The woman then claimed the husband frantically pushed the back of her seat with a clip on social media showing the chair vibrating as the man's arms lay on the back. Another clip shows the wife raising her middle finger at the woman. Oh, steady. Handbags at dawn. A flight attendant told the woman she should straighten her seat rather than tell the people to stop. She said, I was shocked because it was not mealtime, yet the flight attendant wanted me to compromise. I rejected the suggestion. After some passengers spoke up for me, the flight attendant finally said I could switch seats. I felt it was absurd, as if no one had backed me up. Would I have been left to deal with this on my own? Cathay Pacific said we maintain a zero tolerance policy for any behaviour that violates aviation safety regulations or disrespects the flights of other customers. We will deny future travel on any Cathay Group flights to the 2 customers involved in this incident.
You know, I was thinking about this, and they're on about not being able to see the IFE screens, I think you said, didn't you, Matt, on this story?
Yes.
Now, having flown on many airlines in economy and business class, which is slightly different, but in economy especially, obviously you're flying out to Dubai in November with Emirates.
Am I?
And the screens in the economy seats, obviously on the seat backs in front of you. But I know for a fact, I think this is the same for most airlines which have seat back IFE screens, is that the actual top half of the screen pivots. So you can, if the person in front of you reclines their seat, you can actually pivot the TV monitor towards you, so it actually levels out the screen, so you're not looking at it at an angle. So you can still see the screen in front of you. Yes, it is annoying when people do recline their seat in front of you, and you obviously have to struggle a bit to get out of your seat if you need to. You can still see the IFE. You can still see the screen.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, I mean, I had a similar experience when I was travelling out to Auckland. This was a very, very long time ago. I'll tell you how long ago it was, Carlos. I was still at the King's Head in Bungay then, so that's how long ago it was.
My word.
Yeah, and I was flying out there. I had a similar experience. The first leg of the flight, so I went from London, so I went from Heathrow to Kuala Lumpur then on to Auckland, which is where I was meeting one of my best friends. And the London to Auckland bit was brilliant. I had 6 hours to kill in the airport in possibly, I mean, at the time it was a fairly new airport. It blew my mind how amazing the airport was. And I watched Walk the Line, which was the film that was sort of popular at the time, on a sort of like a cinema in the middle of the concourse. It was like this big circular thing with these really comfy armchairs. I nodded off for 2 hours. Fortunately, the film was on loop, so I picked it up, when it came round again, and that was all fine. So the second leg was there. I got onto the flight and everything, and I went to the seat. The person in front of me reclined their seat immediately, which is fine. I didn't have a problem with that. And then the cabin crew came up to me and said, just pull this lever here and then you can recline your seat, because it was literally, I'm not even joking, it was literally that far away from my nose. So even if I wanted to watch the IFE, I couldn't, because it was, my eyes aren't that good, frankly, especially close up. And then I went to do that as instructed, and then I heard a voice behind me that went, "But you won't be doing that, will you?" And it was like, oh, okay, all right then. To be fair, the cabin crew did hear it. They told them that was absolutely unacceptable, and that you should
beat them up.
Well, yes. No, not beat them up, but they sort of made it very clear that it wasn't your decision to decide whether the seat could be reclined or not.
Yeah.
And this guy was getting more and more argumentative and shouty and all that kind of thing. And I just said to the lovely lady who was, bless her, trying to do me a favour, I said, honestly, I'm really not that worried. Don't worry about it. I'll just if that's all right with everyone, I'll just stretch my legs a bit more regularly and all that kind of thing. Well, honestly, I couldn't have asked for the best. I couldn't have asked for better service. As a result, I was almost served. I don't think, I can't quite prove it, but I was more or less served first, and he was more or less served last, and things like that, which was really quite nice. And then I got a lovely surprise when I was then flying home, because they'd asked me what my return flight was, and unbeknownst to me, they'd bumped me up to business class for the flight home.
Which is the best thing ever.
Which the crew very kindly did. So in many ways, I got the last laugh, because my flight home from Kuala, unfortunately, it was only the Kuala Lumpur to, it was only the Auckland to Kuala Lumpur leg, which is the only one they had any control over. But it was the best. It was the longest part of the flight, and it was the best 13 hours ever.
So Darren Smith is saying on the story that we're now talking about, Matt, he says, why have reclining seats in economy? This should be a business feature as there is more room. That is true, but most of the long-haul decent airlines do have a recline in economy. It's not a huge recline. It's not like you're laying back, but they do. It is nice, I think, when you are sitting in economy to have the option to recline, albeit about 4 or 5 inches.
But for a long period of time, that can be the difference between back pain and not.
Exactly.
So I do totally get that. You know, and the thing is for example, I use me and my mum as an example. We both drive the same car. I have the seat almost bolt upright. Mum doesn't, and that's just purely down to sort of like overall comfort. So I don't, as I say, that's why I wasn't making a fuss about the not being allowed to recline my seat, because it was just like, I'll have to do a few more walks and stretches and all that kind of thing. But yeah, love it.
Right,
and I got the last laugh.
Well, no doubt you'll have another one in November.
No.
Anyway, yeah, you will. We'll get you bumped up. Anyway, Nick, you've got the next story. We're talking about air cargo again, aren't we?
Yes. So we had a story a couple of weeks ago, actually, about a UK-based freighter carrier called One Air, who've got a couple of 747. So this is a good news story.
I love their livery.
Yes, it looks great. I have to say, I saw one of these when I was driving down the M1 and I was coming towards East Midlands, and one of these landed right across in front of me as I was driving down the M1, and it looked fantastic. It's quite a sort of retro looking livery. It looks really good. It's very eye-catching. So UK-based freighter carrier One Air has added a third Boeing 747-400 freighter to its fleet, as it looks to cater for rising demand between Asia and Europe. The new freighter has joined on a 5-year lease from Aero Transcargo and completed its first flight last week between Hong Kong and East Midlands in the UK. One Air said that the freighter offers nose loading capabilities and can carry up to 124 tons, as it is an extended range model. In support of its third aircraft, One Air has recruited a further 27 flight crew and support staff, making the total workforce at its UK headquarters now over 125 aviation and cargo professionals. Paul Bennett, One Air's chairman and chief executive, said, "Our business case was always based on the high demand we saw for a British cargo airline, and this is being borne out by the volume of flights we're operating. The arrival of our third 747-400 and its increased capacity and capability will enable us to provide more availability to our growing client base. We are also pressing ahead with our future fleet plans and expect to add at least one more freighter in the first half of 2025 based on our current growth plan." That's great. The airline has been growing. Sorry, go on, Carlos.
Sorry, Nick, you just saying. I was just having a quick look on there. They have actually got 2 777Fs on order. With,
wow. Okay. Yeah. So meanwhile, it's moved its UK operating base from Heathrow to East Midlands to benefit from greater slot availability and fewer restrictions around nighttime flying. The airline's first 12 months of charter operations included flights from airports across the UK, including London Heathrow, London Stansted, East Midlands, Birmingham, Doncaster, Sheffield, Glasgow, Prestwick, and Cardiff. And more recently, as well as ad hoc charter flights, One Air has been operating a contract for 747 freighter flights a week out of Hong Kong into Europe, carrying general cargo. Some of that rubber dog poop that we've heard about. The carrier is hoping to add a fourth freighter. We've got to have a Top Gun reference every week. It's the rules. The carrier is hoping to add a fourth freighter to its lineup in the first half of next year. And as you say, Carlos, the airline has not confirmed which aircraft are under consideration for freighter number 4, but it has in the past spoken about the possibility of adding 777s to the lineup.
Yeah, according to a report I've just read on their site, they're looking at 2 777Fs. And they're actually also taking on pilots at the airline. They're looking for type-rated senior first officers to join the actual outfit itself. And it does say on here that if you are a potential pilot looking for a job with them, you need to have at least 1,500 hours on type to satisfy their requirements. 1,000 hours of that must be on the Boeing 747. But I'll tell you what, it's one thing you never see on careers adverts online for airlines. You never see, and I've never seen one, you never see a salary.
No, but it must be tricky, mustn't it? Because the pool of qualified 747 pilots is getting smaller. And there must be people that have maybe flown on it in the past and have transitioned to kind of newer stuff. You'd have to think that maybe they would be willing to kind of cover the cost of some conversion training. But what a job. That would be my dream job, I think. I'd absolutely love that.
Well, they might have other positions available within the company, Nick. You never know. It could be design their new livery.
No, I just want to be doing the cargo flights, I think.
But it is a nice livery. I do like that livery on there. It's very nice.
Yeah, it looks great.
Next story. This comes to us from, this is an interesting website, Nick, at ksltv.com.
I've been scraping the web trying to find interesting airline stories for us. So.
You may have seen this one on the interwebs this week. Passengers describe injuries from Delta flight with cabin pressure issues. 2 Delta Airlines passengers say they are still recovering from a pressurization issue on a plane that caused bloody noses and burst eardrums. Ouch. Karen Allen said it didn't take very long for other passengers to notice something was wrong with Delta Airlines Flight 1203, which was flying from Salt Lake City to Portland. She said, I looked over at my husband and he had both of his hands over his ears, kind of leaning forward. She said they quickly realized they weren't the only ones in pain on the flight. She looked a row behind me. She said over on the other side of the aisle, and there was a gentleman that clearly had a very bad nosebleed, and people were trying to help him, Alan said. Another passenger, Jackie Purser, said it felt like somebody was stabbing her in the ear. She felt her ear pop from the pressure in the cabin and then bubble. She said, I grabbed my ear, pulled my hand back, and there was blood on it, she said. Passengers told KSL TV they felt the plane dip and looked out of their windows to see them circling the Great Salt Lake. They finally announced that they were going back to head back to the airport and still didn't say why. In a written statement, Delta Airlines said the 737-900 had pressurization issues, but did not go into any detail on what caused the problem. It's an automatic thing an airplane does, and they said, and we monitor it to see if it's not doing what it should be doing, said Valerie Walker, a retired Delta Airlines pilot. Walker said she'd experienced similar pressurization issues while her career flying. She said we take the airplane down to 10,000 feet, nice and slowly, or whatever altitude it will maintain a cabin pressure below 10,000 feet or at 10,000 feet, she said. Walker said the pilots will always try and troubleshoot the problem while in the air too, to avoid returning to the airport or make a detour. And she said that flying at lower altitudes, as we all know on the show, burns more fuel. I suspect, she said, they saw the cabin pressurization problem and had asked air traffic control to go out over the Great Salt Lake because it was visually where they had time and if they had safe clearance to go through the emergency procedures to try and find out what was wrong. Eventually, it was decided that Flight 1203 should return to the Salt Lake International Airport. And Walker said the issue is typically not caused by pilot error. I mean, the story does go on. It's a shame when this kind of thing happens. I think we've all experienced our ears popping when we've been on board aircraft, especially when you're descending. I think is probably when it affects me more. I think is when you're descending into an airport. But I think
we don't have Andy on this week, isn't it? Because I'd be interested to hear his take on this. I mean, we could all make a joke about it's all about the delta P, and it is all about that cabin pressure. So I'm wondering whether or not, in this instance, what's actually happened. I mean, very often we will hear stories where the plane actually fails to achieve pressurization, and even Nev's had an experience of that, hasn't he? But I think in this instance, it's maybe that the outflow valve could have got stuck and that the plane was over pressurized, perhaps, and that's what's ended up causing people to have burst eardrums. It sounds like a really nasty business. I've never ever heard of anything like this before, but it must have been really uncomfortable.
Have you ever had a burst eardrum?
No, thankfully I haven't, but I've known people that have, and it sounds like it's not very much fun.
Both me and Carlos have experienced that, and it is probably one of the most painful things you will ever experience.
Awful.
I think more because of where it is, because it's just like...
It's just uncomfortable.
It's beyond uncomfortable. I mean, it's just like... And the ache afterwards, oh my goodness, it's just like, no.
It does say on the story that... the aircraft was taken out of service on the 15th of September, but went back into service on the 16th of September, Delta Airlines said. So it must have been a relatively simple fix.
Yeah, I guess if it was the outflow valve, it's a pretty easy thing to swap out. But yeah, I'd be interested to see if we hear any more on this one, because it's a bit of a nasty situation for everybody on board.
Yeah. I mean, cast your minds back. Do you remember, Nick? Remember that, I think it was a 737, was it the Helios one that didn't pressurize? And
everybody passed out.
And everyone passed out, including the pilots in the end. Terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible there. And I think that was pilot error. They hadn't switched it back to auto for the pressurization system.
Well, you've had that with your flight sim, haven't you, Carlos?
Do you know what, Nick, funnily enough, you say that. Flight sim, the new flight sim, Microsoft Flight Sim is X-Plane 12 is the same as well. If you don't follow the procedures correctly and switch the pressurization system on, the screen goes black. The actual screen, when you're flying the flight sim, the screen will go black. The noise will still be there, but it will go black. It's quite good how they do it until you obviously bring the aircraft down to below 10,000, well, hopefully below 10,000 feet safely. But yeah, the screen goes black to simulate obviously you blacking out. So
wow,
interesting feature of a flight sim, that is, I will say. Yeah. Now, Matt,
what do they do in the actual simulator? Do they just like fill it with gas or something and knock you out? Is that how they do it?
To remember, the pilots do have a longer oxygen supply on hand than what we do sitting in the back.
Well, quite right.
Well, when you're sitting up front, you can just open the window, right?
Yeah. Sure, why not? Yeah, what could possibly go wrong there?
Nev has his oxygen brought to him in seat 1A.
Of course, absolutely. In a special gold container, absolutely. Yeah. Indeed. Yes.
So, Matt, you've got the next story, and this is terrible news.
It is terrible news. It's Euronews.com is the headline, is the source, and the headline, "No more free food on flights." This European airline is trialling a buy-on-board program. Whether you love or hate in-flight meals, there's no denying the jingle of the trolley breaks up the monotony of a long journey. But free snacks could be the next casualty of airlines' cost-cutting measures after another European carrier plans to scrap them in a new trial. Air France, a subsidiary of the Air France KLM group, will test out a new buy-on-board system for food and drinks on some of its short and medium-haul flights from 2025. Currently, the airline offers an edge over budget carriers like Ryanair and EasyJet by providing a free drink and a sandwich, snack or pastry on most of its economy flights, depending on the duration. Currently, Air France passengers can purchase an a la carte meal when booking or up to 24 hours before departure. Looking ahead, they may have the option to buy on board. Initially, the optional paid catering system will be introduced on Air France's routes from Paris Charles de Gaulle to Helsinki and Lisbon. It is yet to be seen whether the cost savings will translate into lower ticket prices or whether it will be rolled out across other routes. I suspect that the prices will stay exactly where they are. Not all will be lost, however. Passengers will still be offered water or a hot drink with a small sweet or salty snack. Business class passengers will be unaffected by the change and will still receive a complimentary meal alongside hot and cold drinks and a selection of alcoholic beverages. Do other airlines still give out free food? Free food has gradually been phased out on most short and medium haul flights since budget airlines like Ryanair pioneered the pay-on-board model back in the early 1990s. In recent years, full-service global airlines like British Airways and Lufthansa have adopted the system for shorter flights. The Netherlands flag carrier KLM was also recently revealed to be considering removing complimentary catering for economy passengers. Charging a fee would allow the airline to expand its onboard food offerings, a spokesperson told the Dutch Aviation magazine. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce that. Scrapping complimentary in-flight catering could have a silver lining, reducing food waste. In 2023, IATA found that 1.14 million tonnes of food waste was generated from in-flight catering annually. We see what they need to do is they just need to put a me on every flight, and then there'll be no wastage whatsoever.
Yes, I'm always happy to have any unused meals that are going spare. Yeah. I've done that. I think I had 3 on one flight once.
Love that.
It was a long flight, to be fair.
Love that. Definitely the way forward.
But I've got to say, I'm not surprised about this. I'm not happy about it, but I'm not surprised.
I was going to say, what are our thoughts on this? Because obviously we're all pretty much used to, and obviously Matt will be, again, in November, used to having complimentary food.
Am I doing something in November?
I know. Right. You'll be getting complimentary food and stuff.
I should hope so. I should be blooming furious.
But that's a long-haul flight. You know, if you're on a 2 or 3 hour flight within Europe out of the UK, do you really need a 3-course meal and cakes and
in my case, no, because I've usually had a full English breakfast and several pints before I get, in the Wetherspoons before I get on board. Yes, and yes, I don't care that it's 5:30 in the morning.
No, by that time you've already been up for 5 hours.
Absolutely, amen to that. Yeah.
And also, obviously, if they're going to do away with having the freebie food, does this mean then they're going to make the economy ticket even cheaper?
No, of course they won't. It won't
absolutely not.
The price, it might briefly, temporarily, perhaps for one rise, not go up with inflation or something, but that it'll be a cursory nod, if anything at all.
These airlines are businesses, and they're all driven by shareholders and financial people who are looking for ways in which they can cut their fixed costs. And this is all this is. This is cutting their fixed costs in order to still maintain a certain level of service of getting their passengers from A to B. And if it means that they can do that cheaper, then so be it. But it is sad, but I think it's inevitable, really.
Indeed. Richard E. Flagg is saying that you don't need food on short haul. Get a sandwich at Boots at a fraction of the price before boarding. Yeah, fair point. Yeah,
he makes a good point
there.
He
does make a good point. Yeah.
That's part of my routine anyway, is go and get loads of snacks to take on board.
Absolutely.
You've still got to supplement the in-flight catering.
Oh my.
When I flew out with Ryanair with my dad back in May, that buy on board thing weren't even working, Matt.
Was it not? I now have to say, I had a very, very positive experience when we went to Dublin, and I did have a panini, and it was blooming lovely. I don't care what they say. I do love the Ryanair panini. I think it's just awesome. And their coffee, is it Lavanza?
Lavazza.
Lavazza, my apologies. I always get it wrong. And my friend who used to work for them used to tell me off for getting it wrong as well, and I still get it wrong. But it's a very bizarre experience, isn't it, where you essentially drink it through the filter, but it's such a simple yet genius idea.
Oh, I do love coffee.
Yeah, me too.
Could murder a coffee right now. Are you listening? Are you listening, wife? No, she's not listening. Anyway, moving swiftly on.
Wow,
Nick.
okay. It's been lovely knowing you, mate, just saying.
Oh, dear. Wait till I move in the new studio. I'm already eyeing up some
of course you are.
Potential pieces of aviation equipment. Anyway, Nick, you've got talking of. We seem to have a food theme running in this week's show, and this is also a food theme, but slightly.
Yes, well, we have always joked that this is we talk more about food than we do about aviation on this podcast very often. I think it does seem to be a commonly held thing that we all have in common, that we like our food. But now what we have had as well in recent weeks and months has been an awful lot of either aircraft bumping into each other or things bumping into aircraft. And this one in particular seemed to be particularly negligent. Now, I don't know if we've got the video for it. We were all a little rushed leading up to the show this evening.
Right, okay, leave it with me.
So, Matt's now going on the internet frantically.
Yes. Let me see how this internet thing works. Bear with me.
But yes, essentially, for people listening on the audio version of the podcast, we had an Air Canada Airbus A330, which was hit by a catering truck at Montreal Trudeau International Airport, causing a delay to the plane's departure. And yes, I'm not surprised when you see the mess it made. The aircraft was parked on the apron as it was getting ready for a planned departure to Casablanca. Representatives from Air Canada and Montreal Airport confirmed that the incident actually took place in 2022, but video footage of the incident has recently resurfaced and was uploaded to a Guy Fly's Cabin Crew Lounge social media account, which I've never heard of. I'm sure he's lovely. The video shows a new rest catering truck appearing from the aircraft's right side, and the truck continued to drive in front of the aircraft until its roof hit the bottom of the plane's nose. The aircraft sustained visible damage and had to be replaced in order to continue the flight service to Casablanca. So yeah, essentially it hit the, I'm trying to get, it was the starboard side of the aircraft, just behind where the radome sort of joins with the main part of the fuselage. So there was a big it left a big dent just in the fuselage, just behind the radome, and I think the radome itself was damaged as well. So yeah, it was pretty nasty bit of damage. And the truck, I think from memory, it was one of these trucks that's got the kind of high level loading platform over the front of it. So it was quite a high vehicle, and it was that front loading platform that kind of caught the aircraft. So but yeah, it just seems extraordinary to me that, you know, I know that everybody's busy and we're all trying to rush to get stuff done, and you know, airports are very time. Oh, there we go. Matt's found it. Well done, mate. Oh, look at that. Yeah, he's left a big old hole in the aircraft there. Yes,
blimey.
There was quite a wallop, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, that whole nose cone essentially separated.
Yes.
I'll play it one more time. Let's all watch very closely. Here we go.
Watch closely. Here we go.
Bosh! Look, the whole thing just literally. Wow.
I mean, actually, in defence of the driver, with that big platform above the cab, that must make visibility quite difficult. So I don't want to be too judgy.
No.
But let's just say, yeah, I'm surprised that this kind of stuff still seems to keep happening on quite a regular basis.
Agreed.
I always thought that when aircraft are parked on stand, that there's kind of painted, designated
kind of like areas where you're not allowed to go into.
Lined areas where the vehicles stay in between, and if they stay in between those areas, they won't
keep out zones effectively. Yeah.
So I don't think that works.
Yeah. Well, apparently it didn't in this case.
It would appear not.
Anyway, moving on to the next story, which is from theguardian.com, and again,
another food story.
Have another food story.
We couldn't miss this one. This is an absolute beauty.
Oh, I saw this one on X this week. Mouse crawling out of meal forces plane to make an early landing. Right. Airline meals. They should have a cat on board. Just saying. Airline meals hardly carry high expectations, but this week a passenger faced more than just a disappointing supper after a mouse crawled out of their meal, forcing the flight to make an unscheduled landing. I'd put it on my lap and, give it a little rub.
Absolutely would not.
The incident, yes, I love animals. The incident occurred during a Scandinavian Airlines flight from Oslo to Malaga on Wednesday, forcing the plane to land in Copenhagen, the company said on Friday last week. Airlines usually strictly prohibit rodents on board because the animals can chew through electrical wiring, key to the operation of an aircraft. Believe it or not, they said a lady next to me opened her food and a mouse jumped out, wrote one passenger, along with a photograph showing him smiling next to two women also smiling. A spokesperson for SAS said that in line with procedures, there was a change of aircraft and the passengers were flown to Malaga, Spain on another flight, minus the mouse. This is something they said that happens extremely rarely, and they've established procedures for such situations, which also include a review with our suppliers to ensure this does not happen again. It was not the first time a loose rodent has caused a ruckus. In 2017, a BA flight, Nev wasn't on board at the time, bound for Heathrow Airport to San Francisco, failed to take off after a mouse was spotted on board. After a 4-hour delay, the replacement aircraft was found, and it's thought to have cost BA around 250,000 quid. Unscheduled landings are not always due to technical safety concerns. Last year, a United Airlines service heading from Houston to Amsterdam was diverted to Chicago after an unruly passenger in business class interrupted the flight because his first meal choice was reportedly unavailable. Oh dear. In 2017, a Qatar Airways aircraft was forced to land mid-flight after a woman discovered her husband was having an affair.
Ooh.
Oh dear. So there we go. Bit of extra meat in your meal.
Protein is good. Protein is good.
Some people would probably say it's better than a panini. I don't know.
How dare you?
I've never tried mouse before myself, but it could be better.
Rather lacking in volume usually.
I'm sure my two boys in the not too distant future, when they are allowed to venture outside, will no doubt bring in some special offers.
What you mean, these two boys here?
Those two boys.
That's better.
Yes.
We had to have our cat segment, didn't we?
Yes, absolutely. All is once again well with the world.
Yes, I know.
Are we going to rename for the food talking podcast for next week, do you think?
That happened years ago, to be fair.
Oh, okay. I didn't get the memo.
No, yeah. That happened weeks ago.
Matt, do you want the next one, or are you all right with the next one?
Yes, I'll give it a go. Yeah, absolutely. You're really working me this evening, honestly. What you like?
Well, I would just say pass over to Nick if you
this one's sort of kind of exciting, actually. It's aerotime.aero is the source on this one, and the headline is Emirates' first Airbus A350-900 spotted undergoing a rejected takeoff test. Emirates' first Airbus A350-900 was spotted at Toulouse Blagnac Airport, TLS, undergoing more tests as it prepares to join the Dubai flag carrier later this month. Footage of the Emirates Airbus A350-900 was captured by plane enthusiast Eurospot of the wide-body jet executing a rejected takeoff. In the video, smoke from the A350-900's wheels can be seen rising from the runway as the test pilot slams the brakes while the front of the aircraft momentarily lifts off the ground. First Airbus A350-900 for Emirates and smoking rejected takeoff. Now ready for first flight, Eurospot wrote in a post on X. According to Airbus, if takeoff is aborted at V1, the maximum speed at which a rejected takeoff can be initiated, the aircraft must be able to be stopped before the end of the runway without exceeding the maximum energy the brakes can absorb. The first A350 is due to enter service with Emirates in September 2024, with 10 in total expected to join the Emirates fleet by March the 31st, 2025. The Emirates Airbus A350-900 registered Foxtrot-Whiskey Zulu Golf Alpha being tested was seen publicly for the first time, emblazoned with full fuselage colours in April 2024. In January 24, the fuselage of the same aircraft was spotted in parts during the production process, and in March 24, the completed plane was photographed with just its tail painted in the Emirates colours. Colours spelt incorrectly. Grr. Emirates currently has 65 Airbus A350-900 aircraft on order. The first 50 were part of an order announced at the Dubai Air Show in 2019, and 4 years later, the carrier extended the purchase by 15 jets. Now, forgive my naivety on this one. I'm going to ask a question that you may or may not know the answer to. Is the A350-900 the planned replacement for the A380 essentially going forward?
I don't know. Obviously, it doesn't hold as many passengers, but it's obviously got 2 less engines than the A380 for a start. And as we all pretty much know on the show, you know, they could have done with re-engineing the 380 to give it a little bit more leaner burn, I would say, with engines. So I just think that I don't think Emirates will soon get rid of the 380 because it makes them far too much money, I think. But I think the 350 will probably phase out some of the older 777s at Emirates.
Oh, right, okay. I
because
wondered
Emirates has a lot of 777s.
I wondered if it was, you know, because they've now had their last A380, I think, haven't they? Or it's imminent, if my memory.
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah.
I wondered if this was like, you know, like when they start retiring some of the older A380s, essentially.
I think the issue is it still doesn't have the cabin capacity of the 380.
No.
So they will continue to run that on the high capacity routes.
But then there isn't an alternative.
Exactly.
The A350 is the biggest that you can get, and there isn't anything that comes close to it, is there?
Yeah, I mean, you know, we saw it a little bit with the A340 that they kind of made it longer to fit more seats in. I suspect we might see that to an extent with the 350. The 350 is certainly their flagship aircraft. But yeah, it's it'll be interesting to see what happens with that, because I mean, I don't know what we would probably expect to see another 15 or 20 years from the 380s, I suppose.
Yeah, indeed.
Oh, but it is not. I must admit, you know, that it is a gorgeous looking aircraft. I must admit, the 350. Sorry, 350 is so nice.
It's the best one out there, I think. Yeah, couldn't agree more.
Mask, yeah. Right, that's it for commercial news this week. We have packed a lot in there, didn't we, guys? My word. We're running long at the moment. Right, so we're going to go swiftly on with the next part of the show. It is, of course, time for our retro airline ad of the week. And it's a firm favourite of many of you on the show, and there's a lot of love for this. I know Dirk loves this segment. And this week, we are going back to 1994 to a lesser-known US airline and to a time where 1080p obviously wasn't or didn't exist.
Any airline can show you a movie, but you know what they really should show you?
R-E-S-P-E-C-T. Find out when you fly with me.
At America West, we respect your need to arrive on time.
What you need, you know we got it. Oh, we give it. Here's a lottery, find out when you fly with me.
So fly America West and get something you don't always get on other airlines.
I I'm not going to lie. That isn't the worst one that we've had. Carlos, you said there was terrible singing. I thought they did quite well in places.
I thought the lady on the check-in desk was very good.
She was outstanding. If she didn't end up with a music career, there was something wrong with the world at that point. Goodness me.
I just thought I tried to improve the quality as best I could with the program that I obviously used to get these.
Right.
But
they're talking about the thing is they're talking about like big video screens and they never actually show you the video screens. That's kind of amusing. But
yeah, comment in the chat room from Dirk, Mr. Smith.
I hate adverts that involve dancing. Oh dear.
Oh, Dirk, honestly.
There we go. Yeah. I'm sorry to hear that.
Well, sorry, Dirk. Very sorry, Dirk.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. I hope you enjoyed that. We've still got plenty more of the Retro Airline ads in the vault ready to play out in the next week's show. So make sure you keep your eyes open for that. But next, it's time to move on with an awesome part of the show. Me and Nev went to Duxford a few weekends back to the Battle of Britain Memorial Air Show. And while we were there, we were standing next to this aircraft behind me, or point that way, Zulu Echo 701, and RJ. It's the Royal Flight Avro RJ that was sitting there. It's part of the collection at the DAS, or Duxford Aviation Society. It's part of their collection there, and you can go on board this aircraft. It's still set up inside as it was for when it was carrying the royal family, and it's also got the various enhanced laser pods on the side, like the laser suite that it had for obviously deterring missiles when it was carrying the royal family if it had to. But while we were there, standing next to the aircraft, we got to speak to someone who actually used to work on said aircraft and many old aircrafts back in the olden days. And he absolutely had some amazing stories. And if we would have had 2 or 3 hours, we could have got a whole show of just Jerry talking. So I got the great chance to speak to Jerry about his career as a licensed aircraft engineer on many different types of military aircraft, also on the BAE 146. And the example that we were standing in front of here, ZE 701, which is the former, as I said, Queen's flight aircraft that was based at RAF Northolt and was flown into Duxford. So here we go. This is my chat with Jerry. Right, I've been very lucky indeed to grab someone who's got quite a history with aviation. Jerry, welcome onto the show. Lovely to meet you. Jerry, tell us a bit about your distinguished past, I would say.
Well, I started my aviation career as a national serviceman in the Royal Air Force. And I was trained, and I became an SAC, believe it or not, in 2 years, airframe mechanic. And I was stationed all my time at Odium. RAF Odium, which just outside London in those days was an operational station because they had a squadron of Gloucester aircraft that was on alert for monitoring Russian incursions. But I was on what they call the station flight, not a squadron, and we had a stable of aircraft that a lot of non-operational pilots would fly. And of course, as a team, I used to go trips in the so I've flown in quite a lot, vampires, meteors, and things like that. But that's where I started. But when I came out of the Air Force, I took up employment it was in Hawker Aircraft at Big Ham factory. And I was on the tail end of the Hunter in those days. And then, of course, the Harrier came along, and we were very, very involved there with the Harrier. And then, of course, finally, the Hawk, beautiful aircraft. The only thing was, the Harrier was imperial, the Hawk was metric. And so each day you were doing that. But then, of course, when the 146 was built, some parts of it were put down to manufacture at British Aerospace Ham. But towards the end, as you know, the site closed down in the 90s, but towards the end, we did a lot of manufacturing of the Airbus wings for Hatfield, because we had the machinery to machine them. So that's it. But most of my life has been, as I say, the Harrier and the Hawk, the Marlers. And then, of course, when they shut down, I retired.
But you say you've worked on the aircraft we're standing next to here, the 146.
I think it was the ailerons we assembled out, because, you know, they had to spread it all around all their sides. and that, and it was subcontract to us from Hatfield. But so we did a little bit of it. But I have flown in them, and when it's so lovely to see. It's a beautiful little aircraft. This, yes.
So bring back memories to go. You've just been on board to bring back some memories.
Bring back memories. I must admit, because with quality assurance, you had to. You're an inspector, and you had your own identification. You had to put, if you said everything is okay, you had to authorise it. And when I'm looking around, I'm looking at sort of to see if there's anything gone wrong.
So I'm right in thinking, Jerry, that you were one of these people who got your hands dirty when you were working on aircraft. You got covered in oil.
No, well, when I was in the Air Force, yes, I was but quality assurance as inspection. So you had to, and I was responsible for anything that in manufacture that went wrong. You couldn't actually scrap it because it was so expensive, and so I had to liaise with the design office and that to see if it could be salvaged. And we were able to salvage a lot, so that ended up my main job. So I did a lot with the Harrier and the Hawk and that sort of thing, and that's it. But when you retire, you never lose your love of aircraft. Just walking around here is just marvellous.
I was going to say, what are your impressions on? I'll take it this is not your first time to Duxford.
It is my first.
Your first time here?
Yes, I've done Fairford a couple of times, and of course I've done Hendon, but I've never been to Duxford. It's a bit too far out of London. But today, they're giving me a treat.
The family have taken you out.
Yes, is it? Yes, I've been around the American because I grew up as a boy. I lived right next door to Bushy Park, which was the wide wing headquarters of the 8th Air Force, as you know, and General Eisenhower's Chafe. And what's interesting, down there's a lovely little Piper Cub, and they had an airfield in Bushy Park for that. And us boys in the summer holiday, we were up there hanging around all the time, so I must go back and have a look at that.
Have you had a chance to fly on many the older aircraft during your time working within the industry? Did you ever get a chance to jump on board the aircraft and go out for?
Not in the civil side, no, but during national service I flew quite a few times in the Vampires, the 2-seat Vampires,
wow.
The Beatles, yes, and the station Anson. We had an Anson there, and I was somehow I found out I was appointed the chief airframe mechanic on it. And so I had to look after that, although not the engines or anything like that, but just the airframe and that. And that was a beautiful old aircraft, and I flew in that quite a few times. I think sometimes the pilots would say, when they looked up and I was the air mechanic, you're going to fly with me in case anything goes, or to make sure everything was right.
Actually, I was going to say, Jerry, have you ever had the urge to become a pilot or to learn how to fly?
No, I had a chance once to become a glider pilot, but circumstances just didn't come in. But I have a flight simulator. Oh yes, I've set myself up a flight simulator, and I can land and take off and just sit there looking at the screen, and that's it. Oh no, it's a marvellous thing. There's this modern simulators now. You can get marvellous things. Yes.
Yeah, my wife. I've got one at home myself, and yes. And I disappear for hours on end, and the wife loves it because it gets me out of her hair.
Last night, yesterday evening, I said to my wife, I said, look, I'm going to go flying tonight, and I've got my simulator right down in this, and there's a lovely one there. It's a glider, and you glide over Lake Como in Italy. Oh, it is beautiful. You lose to the rest of the world, isn't it? Yeah. Well, you know what it's like, don't you? Yes. So that's it. That's it. Yeah.
Right, well, you've got to get to the seat soon to go do what you're flying. But Jerry, I'm going to ask you one question, if I may, before we wrap up. All these aircraft around here at Duxford, and all the aircraft that you've worked with in your past and with your job, if you could go out onto the airfield now and jump in one of those aircraft or any of the aircraft here at Duxford and go for a flight around the pattern, what would your one aircraft be?
It's probably not flying, but the Dakota.
Oh, the Dakota.
Yeah.
The DC-3, is it DC-3? Yeah.
DC-4. Well, when I was at Odium, in those days, Field Marshal Montgomery was still a NATO general, and we had his Dakota. Basically, he would come into Odium and fly off from there, and of course, at Station 5, we had to look after it. And every time he came to take off, the undercarriage had locking pins in them, and the pilot would start the engines up. You had to crawl under the wing and take the locking pin out. And so I've always got memories of that, and it was an experience, and seeing Monty and all that sort of thing. And the Dakota was a nice aircraft to service, but how long they
Oh,
So in other
brilliant.
words, I've had experience. You never lose it.
Yeah.
Well, you know that. Yes.
Well, Jerry, it's been lovely to talk to you. I think, you know what, I think you should write a book. You should write a book.
It's going live.
This is not live at the moment. It will be live in a few weeks' time. So yeah, I shall let your lovely family know, and then you'll be able to watch yourself on TV.
Oh, good.
All right. But Jerry, thank you for joining us. Lovely to speak to you today.
Yes,
Thank
okay,
you.
Thank you.
What an absolute. Honestly,
Yeah,
Jerry was
what a
an
wonderful
absolute
character.
what a gentleman. And I'll tell you what, we had a chat with him before we went, or before we done the interview and afterwards as well. He's honestly, I meant it. I said to his family that were there with him, he should do an ebook, an audio book, because it's just fascinating when you hear, about the things that went on after, sort of during and after the Second World War, and with the side of the industry that he worked within, checking and looking after the aircraft and stuff. It's just fascinating. Honestly, absolutely fascinating. So yeah, thanks for that. Thanks for that, Jerry, and his family as well for taking him out to Duxford for that day. I'm sure he enjoyed himself.
I bet he had a lovely time.
Yeah. Right, it's time to do some grey stuff. So, Nick, if you're ready.
I'm ready.
What's up, bogeys 13550, Angel 16, heading 340. Okay. Now, undersea boogie.
So the first story we've got in the military segment this week is from the bbc.co.uk, and the headline is "Firm making drones for Ukraine plans more jobs." A tech company that has built drones for surveillance and intelligence gathering in Ukraine plans to expand further after creating 30 jobs in mid-Wales. Techever said it hoped it would generate 200 jobs in the UK over the next 3 years across its two sites in Aberporth, Ceredigion and Southampton. The company's AR3 drone, which can fly for up to 16 hours, is built and tested at Park Aberporth near Cardigan. Earlier this year, the company's AR3 drone was featured in a Ministry of Defence announcement that £60 million was being spent on new surveillance drones for the Ukrainian army. The drone can operate over land and sea and fly at speeds of about 45 miles an hour. It can be launched from the ground by a catapult, or it can be lifted with rotors so it can launch vertically. It lands using a parachute and protective airbag. Pretty cool.
Also, good news for those guys, because I know they are an important part of what's going on over in the Ukraine at the moment as well.
Yeah. You snuck it in there, Carlos.
I snuck it in there, yeah. I wonder whether you noticed. Thank you. Anyway,
people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones.
I know. I'm just getting Nick back. This next story comes to us from the raf.mod.uk. Awesome aircraft this is. If you've seen this up close and personal, I think Jonathan Warner's seen this as well. The Royal Air Force's Wedgetail flies in the UK for the first time. The Royal Air Force's Wedgetail E7 AEW Mark 1 aircraft has taken its maiden flight from Birmingham Airport in the UK. This marks an important milestone in the delivery of this cutting-edge airborne early warning and control capability. Currently unpainted, the aircraft undertook what is known as a functional check flight, which tests the flying control, engine and avionics systems following the initial build phase, which took place at STS Aviation Services in Birmingham. The Wedgetail is the most technologically advanced early warning system available and will provide UK defence with eyes in the sky to see far beyond ground-based systems and fighter aircraft sensors. Already in service and proven with the Royal Australian, Republic of South Korean and Turkish Air Forces, the platform has recently been selected by the US Air Force and NATO as their next command and control aircraft. Capable of generating 360-degree views of the airspace as a force multiplier, it will provide advanced warning of approaching threats to enable commanders to fight effectively in complex environments. Capable of fulfilling a wide range of missions, the Wedgetail will provide a high fidelity and accurate target information utilizing its cutting-edge multi-role electronically scanned array housed in a distinctive fin on the spine of the aircraft. The sensor, combined with an advanced communication suite, enables the crew to provide tactical control to other assets via voice and tactical data link, whilst enhancing the situational awareness of Joint Force commanders. The mission crew will utilize state-of-the-art workstations to deliver a multi-domain battle management capability, providing situational awareness to other assets, directing offensive and defensive forces while maintaining continuous surveillance of an area. The Wedgetail significantly enhances the capability of friendly combat aircraft and warships, enabling their missions and increasing the survivability in a hostile environment. So the UK's Wedgetail will serve under the number 8 Squadron and will be located at RAF Lossiemouth alongside the Poseidon Maritime Patrol aircraft, both of which are based upon the widely used Boeing 737 Next Gen airframe, allowing the Royal Air Force to take advantage of synergies between their fleets. So it's a lovely aircraft to see. Looks very strange with that rather interesting appendage on top of its fuselage, but good to see these getting ready to go into deployment, Nick, anyway, with Royal Air Force. You're on mute, Nick. Nick's on mute.
There we go. Look at
He's
that.
back.
Hey. I should get a fine or something for that, shouldn't I?
Yes.
Yeah.
Am I right in thinking that this is the one that looks a bit like it's carrying a large RSJ across the top of the fuselage?
Yes.
It's a funny looking thing, isn't it? I'm kind of curious to know, what the function of that is. I don't know if any of our listeners have kind of got any experience or any knowledge of what the actual kit is that's housed in that. But I'd certainly be
I don't think they'll be able to tell us, Nick.
Well, yes, possibly they could tell us, but then they'd have to shoot us.
Yes.
Yes.
Which would be an absolute nightmare for next week's show.
It would.
That's true, actually. We are struggling for staff a little bit at the moment,
Yes.
so
Yes.
please don't shoot any of us.
Yes.
No.
Lovely.
But perhaps one day we'll get a chance to at least stand within 2 feet of one.
It's funny, isn't it? Because we're very used to seeing the 737s, painted in Southwest colours or Ryanair colours. But when you see them in military colours, it looks
grey.
Yeah, it's quite stark, and it sort of seems a bit jarring almost to see them as a military aircraft. You don't really expect it. So, but yeah, interesting to see what happens with that one.
Anyway, Nick, moving on to the very interesting part here, because it's a possible chance to meet you.
Yes, or any other members of the team that might like to come along. Now, I am sort of putting this out there a little bit speculatively at this point. In a couple of weeks' time, so the weekend of the 5th and 6th of October, I'm actually going to be up at Heathrow doing a little bit of plane spotting with my son. Now, I thought I would mention it in advance in case anybody wants to come along. Now, as regular listeners will know, I am a big fan of plane spotting at Heathrow, and there are lots of good places to go and watch.
What day?
Well, could be both Saturday and Sunday, unless the weather's absolutely abysmal. Now, what I would say is that, roughly speaking, we would be likely to be there between kind of 12 and 3 in the afternoon. And depending on the landing and takeoff directions, it'll either be the, in inverted commas, mound at T5 or Myrtle Avenue.
I'll tell you what. If you can maybe stretch it, just because of I don't finish on air until 10. Maybe go for 1 o'clock. I'll come on the Saturday.
Oh, that would be great.
There you go.
Well, that would be brilliant. I was kind of hoping, because it's not that far from where Nev lives, so I don't know if he might be able to make it along. But yeah, it was really just a case of, if any of you do happen to live near Heathrow, there is always a really good turnout at Myrtle Avenue in particular, especially if it's a nice day as well. And it's actually it's a lovely place to just go and hang out for a couple of hours, and there's always plenty of people there. You always get lots of social media influencer types trying to do funny photographs as planes fly over the top, which is always quite amusing to watch. But yeah, if anyone would like to come along, it would be really good to meet you. This would be a wonderful way for me to segue into, please send some feedback or an email. If you can email us and let us know that you might be coming, then we can try and set something up.
Yes, definitely, indeed. Make sure you send some stuff in. Details on how you can do that coming up at the end of the show. So make sure you listen to that. Caption this, just for fun, pick of the week. This week's an interesting picture, I will say. I don't know whether Matt, have you had a chance to see this one, Matt?
I have when I loaded it in.
Because you're actually flying on one of these in November, but this is a slightly different version.
I mean, 3 engines on each side for a start. But anyway, there we go.
There are some other differences as well, I will say. But Nick, for the benefit of those listening in the world of audio, what is this week's Caption This picture?
Well, so I think that this is one of these ones. So, on a lot of websites nowadays, you get these kind of like clickbaity pictures, don't you? Of like, look at this amazing new aircraft. And essentially what they've done is they've got the intern to do a bit of photoshopping. They've taken an A380 and they've made it into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's a 5-decker A380 and a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9-decker 747. And I have to say the results are very interesting. Arguably, they haven't made the A380 worse because for the amazing aircraft that it is, it's perhaps not been as blessed as a 747. Yes, the results with the 747 are rather less flattering, I would say.
I mean, logistically, I would love to see how long it would take to evacuate and the people on the top deck. Can you imagine the trip down the evacuation slides? It would be like an amusement park.
They'd have to make it into like a helter-skelter one or something, wouldn't they?
I mean, obviously we've got the 747 at the bottom of the picture there, the Korean Air one, and Singapore Airlines is the extended A380. But we've got a load of comments on the Facebook page for this week's picture. First one, I'm going to kick off with, this is Kevin Lerman, who says, Carlos has finally gathered enough parts to make one Frankenstein aircraft. Thank you, Kevin.
No, I should have run the numbers on this one. My comment was, if Nev's in 1A, what do the other seat numbers go up to? Yeah, I might have to try and count all the windows and see how many seats that would be.
Matt, do you want to go next?
Indeed, yes. Darren Smith is saying you should never leave the Singapore A380 and Korean 747 parked alone together on the remote stands overnight. Strange things can happen.
Ross Kennedy says Airbus A380, 380, 380, 380, 380 and the Boeing 747-800000000.
I counted the zeros, yes. Yeah. It's 18 zeros, which is 8 quintillion. You're welcome.
Nick, you got James?
Yes, James Taylor. Pictures created by artificial unintelligence, aka Daily Mail journalists. I can't disagree with you there, James.
Other publications are available, of course. John Falk says flight attendant colleagues experience an exponential boom in students.
Blimey, I wouldn't say, definitely. Jean-Luc Picard, not to be confused with a certain captain, not content with using their hands to speak, ex-fighter pilots describe the size of their equipment.
Yes, Bill says this is what happens when you have an airport next to a cruise ship port on those dark romantic evenings.
Ooh.
You need to play that special music, Matt.
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
Matt, you've got this next one.
Yes, Dirk is saying straight out of Tim Clark's wet dream. Right. And if anybody
Who's
didn't
Tim
know,
Clark, mate?
Tim Clark is the Emirates airline president, in case you didn't know.
Oh, okay.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you. Bob Harris says, and Bob did actually put a picture with this. It was quite amusing. Turkish Airlines have incorporated shopping facilities inside their fleet.
Yes, there was a good photo that he put up on the Facebook page.
With a shopping centre, yeah.
Yes. And the last one is from our lovely friend of the show, Mazoos. What a Ryanair plane would look like if it actually had enough space for its passengers.
Oh!
Ouch.
Zeus.
Yes, indeed. Bit harsh, but fair. Bit harsh, but fair.
But could you, honestly, the logistics of an aircraft that size would be...
It's a good one from Captain Cruz in the chat room there.
Let me just bring that up. Hold on, bear with us a second while I just... Here we go. What's Captain Cruz saying, Matt?
I can't say it. Oh, yes, I can. Taking the...
You're welcome.
Taking the Mile High Club to another level.
Richard Adams is saying, "Whale I never."
Oh, yeah.
Very good. Very good. But yes, it's definitely an interesting aircraft. If you've not seen the picture, just take yourselves over to our Facebook page. You'll see that picture. Anyway, it's quite amusing. Now, Nick, you can have another quick beg for...
another quick beg for feedback, please. Send us your emails, send us your videos, send us your audio recordings. Get on the show. We'd love to hear from you, please. So please get in touch.
Yes, you can send your feedback to the following addresses. So you can find us on social media. Our links on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Just search for Plain Talking UK. You can email us, email Nick. You can send him an email to podcast@plaintalkinguk.com. The website, allthews.plaintalkinguk.com. You can find the links on there to find out more about us. And you can find out as well details on how you can grab yourself a PTUK t-shirt and also a mug. If you've not already got yourself a PTUK mug, you can find one, grab yourself one on there. It's a military grey one, or you can have our normal plain PTUK mug as well. But if you love your military, I know Jonathan Warner has got himself one of the grey mugs, loves it, he does, has his coffee out of it every day. So you can find the details on there for that. And also, you'll find the links on there to Patreon and PayPal if you want to become a supporter of the show. We really do greatly appreciate your support. So any spare change you may find down the back of the sofa, and you can send to us via PayPal or Patreon. So that is about it for this week. Can I have a quick round robin because we didn't do it last week. So Nick, what are you up to next week?
Ooh. Working, I think. It's very boring. Nothing very interesting at the moment.
Oh.
Sorry about that.
Oh, well. And Matt, what are you up to there? What are you up to this weekend, next week?
Friday, I'm going to be involved in an outside broadcast that I've got to be there at like 4:30 in the morning or something silly. And I'm on site until 9 p.m. basically, as we're doing a very big outside broadcast because Park Radio has found a new home. And we're doing our show from there live. So very exciting and also terrifying, all at the same time. But looking forward to a great day of catching up with some industry colleagues, as Nev would say.
Yeah, looking forward to that. And I'm back on air Saturday after 2 weeks off.
I know,
I'm back
right?
on the radio on Saturday. Looking forward to getting back on my show Saturday at 10 o'clock over on the amazing Park Radio.
Yeah.
So that's it for episode 521 of the show. Big thanks to everyone who has tuned in to watch the show tonight and all the people in the chat room there. Thank you to you all. You are all amazing people, as well as our audio listeners as well. To those of you out there who download the show every week, a massive thank you to you for downloading our show and listening to us every week. We really do appreciate it. So that's it from me. Hopefully we'll all be back. Fingers crossed. Neil will also be back next week, all being well. So from me here in the home studio, from Matt in the P2K Master Suite studios, and from Nick in his home studios in the beautiful part of the UK down in Devon. Have a great rest of the week. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you all next week. Say goodbye, Matt.
Goodbye, Matt.
I don't know.
They missed that. Nick
I
was,
don't know. I never tried it myself.
Well, you've
I mean,
never
me and
tried
Matt
it.
have been known to dabble in karaoke.
We have had a little dabble of the old karaoke.
We have had a little dabble in karaoke, me and Matt.
Yes, absolutely. You made a very successul career out of it.
Well, I did have fun. I'm not going to lie, I did have fun.
Absolutely.
But I must admit, some of my favourite karaoke nights have been where I have been sung in a duo with Matt Smith. So.
Really? Oh dear. Never mind.
Yes, we all
have our
blooming
cross to
good.
bear. I know. But you make me.
We were blooming good.
You always make me do like Rat Pack songs, which I don't know.
Well, I was going to ask which one's Nicole Kidman and which one's Robbie Williams,
Well,
but
I'm
maybe
Nicole
that's
Kidman,
a different song.
Obviously.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Obviously. Indeed.
Obviously.
Yeah, so-
You can do us a quick rendition now if you like.
No, we can't.
No.
No, all is well. Thank
No.
you. Moving on. Yes, happy days.
Even I will
Can
shut that down
Like
now.
I say, can you imagine that over a Zoom link delay? That
Oh,
would just
God.
be utterly horrendous.
The audio.
Yeah. Oh, I don't
Brilliant.
feel well. Blah. Never mind.
I'm gonna have to
Thank
put that
you,
on
Richard.
Spotify now.
Thanks for your comment, Richard. Very kind. Very kind.
Indeed. Right. Time to say goodbye,
Right.
everyone.
We are going to say goodbye now because Mr. Smith is incredibly tired, Mr. Codling is incredibly tired, and I've got to go downstairs and see to two very playful little kittens
How are they,
who
by
had a
the
very
way?
exciting trip to the vets tonight.
They did.
Yeah,
yes.
they're
How are
okay.
they? Yeah.
They've got to take some posh food for a little while to
have they
settle
now?
their bellies
Lovely. Okay.
with various accompaniments.
What you mean? The premium chicken is not cutting it, apparently.
Well, they can have the chicken, but they've got to have this Royal Canin
Of
special
course they have. Right.
food stuff.
Let me guess.
But,
you got it from the vets, and it was 80 gazillion pounds.
No, because that pet plan thing that I signed up for both the boys is amazing.
Okay, fair enough.
My whole visit to the vets today, including the consultation, the medication, and the food, cost me 16 quid.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
We've now transitioned into the cat talking podcast.
Absolutely.
Anyway, I digress. We must move on. We must let these people go. Right, so that's it. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us tonight. You are all legends in that chat room, and have a very great weekend, whatever you're up to. And I think I'll have the last word this week, because I might as well, because I never do that. So that's it, guys and girls. Take care. And from all of us here at PTUK, we'll see you next Wednesday. Good night.